Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is September the 23rd, 2023, day 577 of Vladimir Putin's heinous and barbaric venture in Ukraine. And I'm really having trouble with this because there's such a thing as facts in the world. And I know some people live in a world of alternative facts, but I want to point something out here. Okay, so let's take a look here. Alicia says to me, dude, Mr. Global is an industry expert. He knows what he's talking about. The more you try to debunk what he says, the more you look like a fool. Well, Alicia, I am not an expert. I do not claim to be an expert. I am a generalist. That is to say that I have a very broad knowledge that is not deep, except in a few specific areas. And oil and gas is not one of them, I confess. That is absolutely correct. You are right about that. I am not an expert. But I understand how time works. It's a linear progression. And so here's the thing. Mr. Global says there is no gasoline shortage inside of Russia, despite the mountains of evidence to that fact. And it's a fact. It's not just something that your opinion can dispel. Now dig it. How do we know it's a fact? Well, on September the 6th, the Russian Minister of Agriculture called for an export ban on refined oil products so as to stabilize the rising prices of fuel inside Russia and make it possible for the farmers to bring in their crops. Because the farmers, unable to secure diesel, unable to afford it if they could get it, were threatening protests to block the streets, the highways with their tractors until the government rectified the situation, right? Now, that's all well documented from numerous Russian newspapers, numerous sources. That's a reality. But Mr. Global says that the export ban is a political maneuver by the political mastermind, Vladimir Putin, who anybody that's following this conflict knows that Vladimir Putin is anything but a political mastermind. Every single move he's made has backfired badly. And his continued insistence on lies will result in the end of the Russian Federation. The country is tearing itself apart. The fact that the farmers can't bring in the harvest because a country that is nothing more than a gas station with nukes doesn't have enough diesel that the farmers can afford, that tells you where Russia is. And I am curious as to why Mr. Global is so desperate, and his trolls are so desperate to make us think that, oh no, everything is fine. Everything is fine inside Russia. Why is that? What is the motivation to ignore the facts and to make up a bullshit conspiracy theory that says that this is all Vladimir Putin's master plan to make Joe Biden look bad and to sabotage the Biden administration's plan to bring gas prices down in the U.S. that was announced 8 days ago? Now, how could the export ban that was announced on September 6th be a plan to sabotage the Biden administration's plan that was announced on September 15th? That, you're right. One of us does look like a fool. You're right about that, Alicia. I'll give you that. Now, I keep saying that these shortages are a matter of fact. How do we know that they're a matter of fact? Because one thing Mr. Global said I agree with. You cannot trust the Russians. That is for sure. But I'm here in Kyiv, and I have access to lots of media that's very interested in what's happening in Russia. Ukrainian Pravda, which you can get online in English, and I encourage you to take a look at it. And Ukrainian Pravda, let's see, this article is from August 22nd. They've been reporting on this for months over here. This increasing pressure inside of Russia and the increasing shortages. Now, according to Pravda, August 22nd, Russia's Krasnodar Krai, Astrakhan, and Volgograd Oblasts are facing fuel shortages. Fuel, right, and it goes on. And there are reports like this all across Russia. Now, I didn't even mention prices, right? Because prices inside of Russia are not free market prices. Because they're a major exporter of oil and gas and refined oil products, which is why they produce so much more than they consume, because they're a net exporter. That's their business. It's 60% of their economy. Duh. Prices are subsidized for the Russians. There's subsidies paid to keep gas prices in the country low. And so the historical gas prices inside of Russia are very stable. That's a historical reality. And so I didn't even mention gas prices because the market is rigged. It's not a free market. However, I called a friend of mine, a really brave, brilliant woman who escaped from occupied Crimea to get back to her friends and family in Ukraine. And her story is an amazing story, I'll tell you. But I said to her, you know people still inside Russia. You know people in Crimea. What's going on? She sends me this. First, I'll just show you the Russian so that Russian speakers understand, that the translation is the translation that they see here. And then take a look at this. According to this announcement on this state Telegram channel, you can expect to be paying 100 rubles a liter for diesel in Crimea in the near future. It's currently running at about 78, but it's going to be 100 before too long. Now, that's way out of line with Mr. Global's chart, because Mr. Global's chart only goes up to August 23rd. We don't have the September data yet, right? But this is the current reality on the ground. She backed this up with another source, which is here in the Russian. And then here's the English translation, which validates the shortages, at least in Crimea. Now, according to her, the family inside of Russia is experiencing similar things. And according to the St. Petersburg Mercantile Exchange, the notice that the export ban was going into effect immediately dropped prices by 10% inside of Russia. And so it's fair to say that we're going to see a price drop. It's fair to say that in a couple of weeks, they'll go back to exporting because that's how they make their money. But to deny the reality on the ground, it makes no sense. And this argument that because the guy's an expert, so-called, that's the logical fallacy that we call the appeal to authority. And you got to have facts. I'm sorry, you got to have facts. So yeah, one of us does look like a fool.